We begin this morning with the news that social media giant Twitter has deleted a tweet from President Muhammadu Buhari where he threatens to treat Nigerians misbehaving in the language they understand. President Buhari spoke about the experiences of the civil war and threatened to deal with those who he says are bent on destroying Nigeria through insurrection. Twitter deleted the message, noting that the tweet violated its rules. At the moment, it remains unclear if the platform will take further action against the president. Twitter rules prohibit a number of actions from users, including violence, abuse, and hateful conduct. Buhari's tweets have caused an uproar on social media platform. And in response to the tweets, Nigeria government accuses Twitter of promoting groups which want to break up the country. Minister of Information Lai Mohammed says he wonders why the platform isn't deleting the tweets of members of the indigenous people of Biafra, like they have done to the president's tweets. He says IPOB members are inciting the people against the government and accuses Twitter of backing them and other opponents.
Twitter may have his own rules. It's not a universal rule. If Mr. President, anywhere in the world, feels very bad and concerned about a situation, he is free to express such views. Now, we should stop comparing apples with oranges. If an organization is proscribed, it is different from any other organization which is not proscribed. Two, any organization that gives directives to its members to attack police stations, to kill policemen, to attack correctional centers, to kill warders. I'm not saying that Mr. President does not have the right to express his dismay and anger about that. We are the one guilty of double standards. I don't see anywhere in the world where an organization, a person will stay somewhere outside Nigeria and will direct its members to attack the symbols of authority, the police, the military, especially when that organization has been proscribed. By whatever name, you can't justify giving orders to kill policemen or to kill anybody you do not agree with.
All right. Tundu, your views on this, Tundu?
I think it's quite embarrassing that Twitter has given the Nigerian president a slap on the wrist in this fashion. It's extremely embarrassing, actually. Even though, obviously, President Buhari has not been singled out for bad treatment, Twitter has changed. I recall a time when Twitter was heavily criticized for allowing ISIS and their radicalization videos and all kinds of awful propaganda to stay on its platform. So I think they're trying to clean up their act, and they're coming down quite hard on a number of people, on a number of themes. Anti-mask rhetoric, for example, gets deleted. President Trump, famously a repeated violator who had his whole account suspended. So President Buhari has not had his account suspended, just that tweet, because he's not a repeated violator. Hopefully this will not happen again. It's embarrassing for the country. And obviously Festus Keyamo had his tweet deleted recently because he posted screenshots of a conversation that he had. But it's why this is particularly sad for me is just with the tension that we have in this country and who is driving the tension, I have to blame the leadership. I continue to bang on about Section 15, subsection 4. It is the state that's supposed to foster an atmosphere of unity and harmony, and the state is simply not doing that. And the minister, Alhaji Lai Mohammed's comments about how Nnamdi Kanu's tweets were not deleted, well, he was banned from Facebook because I think he chose Facebook as a vehicle to post his more incendiary posts, and they actually deleted his account. I actually tried to find out, because I don't use Twitter, where he posted that broadcast that he was supposed to have made issuing a death threat to whoever does not obey the sit-at-home order. He knew better than to post it on Twitter. I'm sure that would have been deleted too. So I don't think it's that Twitter has a dog in the fight necessarily. They just have their standards that they're upholding. Anything that looks like a threat or something inciting will be deleted. And I think the president just needs to learn, or whoever is responsible for posting that, to stop embarrassing the country in this fashion. It's completely out of order.
Dr. Bati?
I think it's as follows. Yesterday, when we discussed the statement made by the president, I made a point that the presidency would need to offer a clarification. But they didn't take that advice. Because on the face of it, if you deconstruct what the president said about shocking people, about reacting to them in the language they will understand, and also ensuring that people who do not remember the war are reminded of the Civil War, and they will be, given their full measure and reference to certain parts of the country. On the occasion of the anniversary of, the Biafran War, we said that these were indications that could convey to the public that the president was issuing a threat and that the president was engaging in hate speech against certain parts of the country, quoting what the president himself said. And now, okay, on Twitter yesterday, I saw a number of hired, hacks trying to attack and fall back. But at the end of the day, what has happened? What has happened is that the matter has been taken up by Twitter, and the president's tweet was deleted. I agree with you to know that it's embarrassing, because what Twitter has done is to put President Buhari in a very bad company. You recall that Twitter came up with a rule, I think early last year, targeting specifically problematic presidents who make offensive statements on Twitter using their platform or Facebook. And it was in the process of that President Trump was banned permanently from using Twitter on January 8, 2021. Another president that was targeted was Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil, because of his offensive statements about COVID-19. Another president that was targeted was Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. And another person that was targeted was Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York. So President Buhari has now been put in that category. Now, I don't think it looks good that Nigeria is in bad company at that level. The second point is that Twitter has what they call community standards, community rules. Those community standards and community rules, they are not a universal rule. Yes, as the Minister of Information pointed out, they are rules of the tech giant itself. And everybody that uses that platform is bound by those rules, whether they are presidents or whatever. I think it's unfortunate that we have now reached a point where Minister of Information is comparing the president of Nigeria to Nnamdi Kanu. I think it's an unfortunate comparison. Now, he's talking about the rights of the president compared to the rights of Nnamdi Kanu. However, what the Minister of Information needs to do, he can appeal under the community rules of Twitter. A country, a president, an individual can appeal. And I hope that he will take that option instead of over-dramatizing what has happened.
All right, well said, Dr. Bati and Tundu. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Ruth Sudiri, Michael Wilson, Adeso Mora, Aaron Akirios to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. All right, Tundu.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rotis Sodiri is here to give us an African business update. Over to you, Rotis.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. The African Business Update on the morning show today kicks off with gas. The NNPC's Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Yusuf Usman, was at a forum organized by local gas players in Nigeria's gas sector, and he was talking about the Gas Master Plan, which is supposed to Nigeria's decade-long plan to exploit Nigeria's large gas reserves and become, a major player in the gas sector, with respect to exporting gas and also to utilizing gas to contribute to power generation and so on and so forth. He did, however, say that the amount of investments that will be required for that to happen amount to about $40 billion. It's a sizable amount of money. I mean, if you want to scale that, that's $8 billion shy of the entire capitalization of the NGX, our stock exchange. It's $9 billion higher than our 2021 budgets if you were to convert the 13.5 or 13.08 trillion naira at the NAFEX rate. So it's quite a lot of money. And you put that within the context of the amount of FDI that came into Nigeria last year, $2.6 billion total. In 2019, it was about $3 billion that came in. You need to attract investments to come in. And he says, Mr. Yusuf was saying that, look, we have to look at policymakers have to look at appropriate pricing of gas. Think about the GENCOs and what the gas generation, how it's priced in dollars down the value chain for power generation. He talked about a whole lot with respect to being able to bring investors in here. You have to make sure that the environment is attractive. There is some focus on gas in the petroleum industry bill, so that also has to be passed as well with respect to getting that underway. So it's a sizable amount of money. There's the NNPC. I don't know if anyone's taking stock of all the announcements they've been making. They've been very honest with respect to challenges with remittance to the Federation account, what we need as far as Nigeria's gas master plan is concerned. But look, gas is a capital intensive project, so it requires a lot of funding. If you're going to get that private funding, you have to make sure that your environment is conducive, and so there's a lot of ramifications, not only for job creation, power generation. It's something that we really have to focus. So it was an engaging forum that the Chief Operating Officer of the NNPC's gas division engaged in with sector players. To job creation, Vice President Yemi Osibanjo has announced a Nigeria Jubilee Fellowship Program. This program intends to create 20,000 jobs per year for youth, and they are partnering with they've got a number of partners for this initiative. The EU, the Dangote Group, Buhari'S, Lafarge, Visa, Microsoft. He says that this, they didn't really get into too many details, but essentially they're going to partner to try to get at least 20,000 jobs a year created for the youth. Job creation in Nigeria, I mean, Doctor has reeled off the stats, so has Tundu, so has you, Rufai, as well. You combine unemployment, underemployment for the youth, you're looking at something close to 60%, 55, 56 or so. And all these initiatives, this is not the first job creation initiative that has been announced by the federal government of Nigeria. You have to ask yourself, okay, the prior jobs initiatives that have been put out by the government, where have they gone? Rufai, I remember, was adamantly campaigning for, not even campaigning, just basically expressing that we need at least, I think Rufai, you said it was a weekly jobs number, so at least, see how many jobs are being created in different sectors here in Nigeria. Today is Thursday. Michael Wilson and I, later this afternoon, will be going over the jobless claims in the United States. That's a weekly number that tells you how many people are out of work, are claiming job benefits in America. So we have to have some kind of track with respect to all these jobs initiatives that are being announced by the federal government. But once again, it's 20,000 jobs a year. Federal government of Nigeria partnering with the EU, Dangote Group, Buhari'S, Lafarge, Visa, MasterCard for the Nigeria Jubilee Fellowship Program that should create 20,000 jobs per year for youth. To the IMF and Uganda, the IMF has extended a credit facility to Uganda to the tune of $1 billion. This extension of this 3-year facility is basically to assist Uganda in their constrained finances with respect to the impact that COVID-19 has had on the nation. Uganda had one of the strictest COVID lockdowns across Africa, I think probably rivaled only by South Africa maybe, who banned alcohol at one point, alcohol sales. So Uganda's been pretty constrained. I think it got about 490 million or so last year from this facility. So it's been extended, giving them $1 billion to at least help them to shore up their finances with respect to trying to get them out of the COVID-19 malaise. And then finally, Zimbabwe. The biggest miner in Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe Consolidated Diamond Company, saying that 30% output.
You are taking up all the time.
Okay, go right ahead. That's it. That's our business. 30% increase in Zimbabwe diamond output this year. That's it.
Okay, very quickly. I think on the job program, what they call the Nigeria Jubilee Fellows program, is going to last just about 12 months. So what happens after 12 months? I think that's one question that we should ask. I think what the government needs to do is to take a look at the economy and see how this same economy that used to function and work for Nigerians, how it can begin to work for Nigerians again. We used to have factories all over the place in Nigeria and people going to work. We used to have, factories going to universities to recruit people. We used to have them going to NYSC camps to recruit people. All of a sudden, all of that has stopped. All those factories have become churches. They have become places of religious worship. Okay, what the government wants to do with this, they claim that they want to rewrite the narrative. The best way to rewrite the narrative is to take a closer look at the economy and make it begin to function for the benefit of the people. That's one. Number two, I wanted to ask you about ShopRite. We understand that the business has been completed. There is a Nigerian group, Ketron Investment, that is taking over. Now, what is the implication of all of that for the average consumer that goes to ShopRite in more than 20 states of the Federation?
Yeah, it's just a divestment. They've divested, they've left it, and they want to concentrate on South Africa. So the Nigerian group now, their infrastructure is still there, the employers are still there, nothing changes. ShopRite just moved, focusing on South Africa now.
I just wanted to chime into what Dr. Abati said about the Jubilee Fellowship. I couldn't agree more. After the NYSC of 1 year, you're then a Jubilee Fellow for 1 year, and then that's it. An internship does not a career make. I mean, I hate to sit here and be critical all the time. It's even stressful for me. I'm actually looking for the silver lining here. But I think that it's just too much of an interim measure. We need to have fulfilling careers for the youth. It's not just something to keep them busy for a year, and then what?
So my point has always been around jobs.
Great point.
Rotus, is the fact, okay, we need to move, so no time. So I can't make the point, but maybe probably I'll make it tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time, Rotus. Really appreciate you.
Moving on now to more business update. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Indicators this morning. China Caixin Market Services Purchasing Managers Index coming quite high, actually 55.1, lower than the 56 in April, but still in good positive territory. And Australia's retail sales up as well. So mainland China stocks up. Really quite a bright morning as far as Asia Pacific stocks are concerned. Huawei, China's huge phone manufacturer, is launching its own operating system on smartphones to challenge Google's Android. Huawei has launched it and it wants to pivot its software focus across consumer electronics like wearables and so on, and tablets to boost revenues, because obviously US sanctions have dented its business quite hugely. Now, China, as you know, restricted a lot of Australia exports, and tension between the two countries has deteriorated pretty much over the recent months. We've noted this before. It's quite interesting that Australia is actually now selling its products to other countries as well, particularly India, for example. Coal exports to the rest of the world, $9.5 billion higher. So UK and now see these big important shifts actually taking place, and they're not necessarily what China had wanted by its imposition of tariffs. And just continue with that, UK ministers believe, we talked about this yesterday, didn't we, that there may be some kind of fully fledged deal coming up. It'll be discussed after the G7 later this month in Cornwall in this country, between Australia and the UK. Yes, it does include farmers, and yes, it is, as I said yesterday, seen as an absolute linchpin to try to get the UK into the Comprehensive Trans-Pacific Partnership. That would put us in zero tariff competition and zero tariff comfort zone, really, with Australia, Mexico, Vietnam, Malaysia, Japan, and also Australia as well, and New Zealand too. BMW plans to impose 360,000 electric charging points in China. They know very well that its own emissions would be production chain reduced by 80% since 2030. It well knows that China has got a zero target by President Xi by 2060 to have to have zero carbon emissions, or at least balanced carbon emissions there. And it's felt that in the near future, there's no real time on this, but say by 2025, EVs, electric vehicles, will be 25% of new car sales in China instead of just the normal or just the current 5%. So BMW wanting to get in there. Got some. We talked a bit about OPEC Plus yesterday, knock-on effects of that, a hot summer for oil prices based on the fact that, yes, as we know, OPEC Plus decided to stick to its schedule of oil production. 2 wild cards, though, 1 US shale producers, 2 Iran talks with the US. But it's felt that as inventories start to slow down, we could see the oil price up to $80 a barrel by the end of the summer. I'll recap the US markets for you very, very briefly. More tapering comments from another Fed official. In other words, the tap slightly being turned off as far as quantitative easing is concerned. But the big one, Reuters was saying earlier, we'll be talking about the weekly jobless figures today, but the big one is the non-farm payrolls tomorrow. And also these so-called meme stocks. In other words, they are, stocks which promote themselves on the back of ordinary investors going on social media. We saw AMC Entertainment and GameStop. Those are the 2 big ones. Those are actually quite high at the moment. The feeling, though, is, as I mentioned before, that this retailer trader frenzy is not good for the stock market, and it shows that things are rather overheated, which is not good. US persistence on Trump tariffs is annoying business. A lot of the Trump tariffs that were put on things like clothes and food have not been turned back, and a lot of US businesses are pretty cross about this. I have to admit I am very confused about this, and I've not managed to clarify this for you, but I think this is a separate story. But President Biden is actually going to amend some of the Trump military financial sanctions that were put on companies with close attachments to the Chinese military. So that may well be happening. I haven't managed to wake up anybody in the United States to check on that, but we're talking about that with Reuters later in the day. And the US is actually going to wield some big, hefty tariffs as far as the UK and 5 other countries are concerned in terms of their trade. So the trade representative, Ms. Tai, is actually working overtime. Which direction she's going in, not quite sure as we speak. JBS, you remember that Sao Paulo-based meat supplier that had its Canadian and US operations actually hacked yesterday. The FBI is now blaming Russia. Biden is going to meet Putin later this month, and they will apparently talk about it then. UK Amazon beefs up its COVID testing capabilities. This is an important story because I think it's going to open the door to on high street pharmacies, which I think may be something which is happening in the rest of the world. And we did talk about petrol prices yesterday, talked about oil prices and petrol prices, just to let you know that you're not alone in this. Our own petrol prices in this country are the highest in 2 years. Why? The reason I mention this is, one, it's the inflationary pressure, but secondly, petrol companies don't make a load of money out of their refined products. Excuse me. And I feel that what they're doing is they're trying to catch up on the pandemic lack of production. So those prices, as I say, up like a rocket, down like a feather, as usual.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for the insight. 2 things that want to happen. Number 1 will be around those trade tariffs. What is really happening? Because I'm sure China doesn't get this. China wants to do business now with America. America wants to do business now with China, but those Trump era tariffs are still there, and it's blockading everything. I mean, businesses can't interact. So what's going to be the way forward in this, and the silver lining on this, vis-a-vis the fact that businesses now feel very stifled because tax numbers will definitely increase very soon. All of this going on at the same time, inflationary pressures on the American economy. What is really happening?
As far as trade is concerned, I would love to know how far up in Joe Biden's to-do list trade actually is. If you think about it, the Chinese don't have to worry about a succession until probably a long, long time in the future. What are we talking about? 2035 maybe? Biden, by contrast, and the United States and other countries which are troubled by democracy and political terms and so on, have to actually think about the future. Now, is anything major going to happen as far as the United States is concerned by 2024? My worry about it is that the US is far more concerned about internal matters. China will go its own way until we know there's been diplomatic pressure put on them by the trade representative Ms. Lai yesterday. We talked about this. Whether that actually works or not, very, 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 very cautious about that. I feel as though the whole thing about the United States will actually be about internal infrastructure plans and all the rest of it, which again we've discussed before. As far as the rest of the world is concerned, I would put my faith in the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement. I think that's going to be quite something. That's going to have, you've got really quick growing economies like Mexico, Vietnam and so on in that. You've got Malaysia in that too. You've got Australia, you've got New Zealand in it. You've got Canada in it. You've got the UK in it as well. I think that will be a big pressure on China because it's not getting its own way. As far as tax is concerned in the United States, yes, quite no. We don't know what the exact plans of that are going to be yet, do we? We don't know how far and how quickly this is going to move through the administration in the United States. Will it come to bear on companies? It may well do. I suspect deals will be struck, but one lot which should feel threatened by this, of course, are the high-tech stocks, which we talked about before. Those companies are going to find their profits on the block fairly soon.
Right. Well, Michael, I guess we have less than a minute to go, but quickly I wanted you to comment on the meeting that President Xi Jinping had on Monday with leaders of the Communist Party. He says China wants to change its communication strategy and to be more perceived as a friendly country, as a considerate country. Why is that so important to China?
I think what they're trying to do is that they're trying to present, they've had a fairly rambunctious relationship with the United States and the rest of the world over the past couple of years. They're trying to be slightly friendly. It's public relations, that's all it is. Until actually something happens, until acts actually follow words, it's public relations is the answer to your question.
PR. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesso Mora is here, and she joins us now. Adesso, great to have you as always, doing a stellar job.
Good morning, guys. Well, as countries such as America, United States of America, plan to have a summer of hugs with vaccinated citizens, you recall that the U.S. has the highest fatality and cases globally as regards the pandemic. But as they try to reopen to a safe summer, some countries are seeing their worst outbreaks since the pandemic began, with few or no vaccines at all. Of the 1.9 billion, according to the Johns Hopkins University tally on your screen, of the 1.9 billion vaccines administered globally, just 0.4% have been administered in low-income countries, a situation the WHO boss, Tedros Ghebreyesus, describes as ethically, epidemiologically, and economically unacceptable. Well, here in Nigeria, 25 new cases have been recorded in 5 states, beg your pardon. No deaths were recorded in the last 24 hours. Now, the second dose vaccination exercise has continued in Nigeria. Over 148,000 people have received their second jab, including the President, Muhammadu Buhari, and his vice, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. 32 states, according to this data by the NPHCDA, have now commenced the second dose exercise. Citizens are urged to check their vaccination cards and walk into any accredited centers, especially the ones where they took their first jab, to complete their regimen. Now, the COVAX initiative received an additional $2.4 billion pledge from countries yesterday during a virtual summit hosted by Japan. Now, this was hosted by Japan and the Gavi Alliance, but topping the list in donations came from Japan with $800 million. It's a fourfold increase of Japanese funding to the COVAX program. And this comes as Prime Minister Yoshihide's government attempts to accelerate vaccination in Japan ahead of the Olympics, barely 50 days away, with more setbacks. Perhaps Aaron will tell you much more about those setbacks Japan is facing ahead of the Olympics. And to the US, where President Joe Biden is dangling everything, something to get Americans get a jab in their arms, the COVID jabs, from free beers to free child care to tax rebates. Yesterday, in a 15-minute address, President Joe Biden announced a national month of action to get more Americans vaccinated before the 4th of July. The plans would, amongst other things, see a nationwide vaccination tour led by Vice President Kamala Harris. According to him, 28 states and the District of Columbia have achieved 50% of the vaccinating adults in their state. You recall that President Biden's target is to get 70% of American adults with at least one dose of coronavirus vaccines before July 4th. We'll see how all of this plays out. And finally, governments in Latin America are failing in their response to curb dangerous new rises in coronavirus infections. That's according to Powell, the head of the Pan-American Health Organization. Clarissa Etienne is who you had on the screen a moment ago. She says countries such as Brazil and Haiti will continue to see a rise in cases unless leaders take action. And she's expressing concerns over misinformation and mixed messages proliferating and also being encouraged by leaders of the region. Particularly, she singled out Brazil. You recall that President Jair Bolsonaro has been in denialism when it comes to COVID-19.
Thank you, Desra.
Please go ahead.
With President Biden, he's trying to get them to get their jabs and get jobs, because that's all intertwined in America and it's becoming a bit of a crisis. But I read the most uniquely American story about West Virginia that I just have to share with you. The governor there is offering guns and trucks and cash as an incentive, only in America. Come and get a vaccine and we'll give you a gun. I mean, how completely bonkers is that? I really hope that those guns don't end up in the wrong hands, quite frankly. I want to talk to you about the Nepal virus as well, the Nepal strain of the virus. I beg your pardon. Apologies to WHO. They haven't assigned it its own Greek name. What are your thoughts on that? The fact that all these new strains keep coming up.
Well, Tundu, it's the same thing we'll talk about every time. As long as the world continues to take this nationalism approach to solving the global pandemic, we're going to see virus mutate, because that is what they do. While some will generally weaken, others become more virulent, more transmissible, and that's what's happening. So if we do not work together to vaccinate the world, we're going to see these new strains that become more transmissible. And scientists fear that it may even become a situation where we'll see these viruses weaken the vaccines that are available. So that's the situation we have in our hands. I don't think it should come as a surprise to anybody that we are seeing these new strains across the world.
Well, very quickly, in the United States, you know that one of the major highlights of the Biden presidency since he assumed office has been, a change of tack, a change of track after President Trump. At the moment, about 63% of adult Americans have been able to take at least one dose of the vaccine. And the objective of the Biden administration is to ensure that by July 4, up to 70% of adult Americans will at least have been able to take at least one dose of the vaccine. So this is a vaccine initiative, and his own initiative this time around is titled Get a Dose and Take Beer. And that is being done in partnership with the biggest, brewer company, brewing company in the world. I think that's ABV. RI, I can't pronounce the Belgian name of the company. But that's the, biggest makers of beer in the world. And so if you take a vaccine, you take a beer. And that's like the other examples we've cited elsewhere, from Detroit, from Washington, D.C., from New York, from Serbia, where you are given money, and from Ohio, where Mike DeWine has a lottery. And other states have also introduced lottery. But this time, you are being given beer. In some other places, you take a roll of marijuana.
Oh, you get
yeah, yes, I get all of that. Or you get a free board scholarship. But what he's trying to do is just to motivate the people, more people, so that the American government can meet the target of 70%. Now, Kamala Harris, the vice president, is also supposed to go on vaccination tours. And then pharmacies are supposed to extend hours just to motivate the people. And we made the point on this program that perhaps, there's something we can learn from that example. I imagine if we start serving Nigerian spaghetti and and amala, and you give them a little shot of ogogoro. Look, the whole country will be immediately vaccinated if, of course, if you have the vaccines. Although what we have been told is that we expect the next consignment before September. Now, as for what is happening in Latin America, now, one of the points you left out that Carissa Etienne made is that leadership is part of the problem. Yeah. Okay, you mentioned Brazil, but it's the same problem in Mexico, it's the same problem in other places, and then there is a new variant, a double variant, that we have been told has come out of Haiti. Well, I don't want to call it the Haiti variant because we have been told there's now the Greek alphabet identification. And that in itself, you know, because of the factor of proximity, poses a problem. And she also talked about the problem of equity, which is a major problem, which is a continuing problem in the world. As long as you have people like Bolsonaro of Brazil, he wants to host Copa America next week. The Supreme Court has ordered him to provide more explanation. Parliament is against it. Everybody is against it, but he says his decision is final. And he doesn't care what anybody says. 8 states have said they are not part of it. Only 4 states, including Rio de Janeiro, are hosting the tournament. So there are issues. And Carissa Etienne, I think, is right when she raises the point about leadership being very important.
Right. I think that's about all we can take.